Good evening, folks, and welcome to another session from the Old Wise Asylum. It's piracy, I say. I tell you, it's piracy. Oh, what is going on in the world? It is piracy. I'll rotate or running the show. Occupation. It's not good. It's not good. I don't know. Any road. Somebody sent me an excellent video in the week. Graham Moore. I'm sure you're all aware of Graham. Big on the old English, blah, blah, blah. He's a good egg. He's a good egg. He likes Trump and all that, so he's obviously not got himself fully equipped for the Wise Asylum. But nevertheless, he does put out some pretty good stuff, and it's a long time since I've even seen anything from him, so I wasn't even aware he was still doing it. However, he is. And an interesting little video that he put together, which prompted me to thought, well, let's have a look. What's he talking about? So we're going to have a look tonight at the English Convention of 1689. Now, the interesting points that he brought out in the video is where this convention actually presents who the trustees are in relation to all the equity and nonsense that we discuss day in, day out. So this is what got my attention. Now, I haven't gone through this convention at all. I thought we'll just do it raw on the live, and we'll follow the links and see where it takes us, because input here, if you get any ideas, throw it out there. Let's have a look. Let's discuss this as much as we can in this particular Wise Asylum session without medication, and let's see where it gets us in relation to, do we understand things just that little bit better? Because that's what we're all trying to do, is it not? So that's the gig for tonight. We will just have a little run through some of the news in Russia, because I think it's important that people really get into their mind the fact that all the headlines we see here, it's the same kind of gig going on in Russia. Now, what's going on? Has NATO pushed Russia into the hands of China? Because it's certainly taking on everything that we know is been afforded to the corporation China for this reset, social, digital, everything system that's going down. We know that. Is this how they're managing to get Russia in there? Because it's certainly pumping out exactly the same stuff. However, we've got diversions galore at the moment here, have we not? Russell Brand being a prime example. And again, everybody's going apeshit, and they're just accusations. Nobody knows what's what. He's never, I mean, I don't know much about him, in fairness, but obviously he's all over the internet, so you'll now and again, I'll pick him up a bit, or an headline even. So I'm aware that he's been out there doing his bit. Now, it's a long time since I properly looked at him, and I thought to myself, guy's shilling, based on what he weren't saying, the kind of places he were going, platforms for his interviews, etc., etc. Clearly this guy, you know, he's been up there, he's made his money, and he's certainly got a big audience, so interesting. However, we always have to afford certain people, and usually the people that are not what you'd class as balance. They're the people that are really just pushing the envelope. Them are the people you want because they've got the X factor. If they can harness it, all the better. But you know, it's the extreme side of things that you need to push it that little bit further, regardless of the consequences. So I'm affording him the idea that maybe in coming into contact with so much of this data, which you can't help but doing, even if you're a shill, that at some point he realised that he had a conscience and that his knowledge, his experience, etc., should be used in order to, a bit like Rick Mail did, to warn people, to show people what's actually really going on. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for that. I'm well aware that he's always, or never, hidden the fact that he was a sex addict for a long, long time. So a lot of the behaviours I'm seeing coming out from woodwork all over the show is exactly what you'd expect from somebody who's addicted to sex. Not everybody's going to like his advances. That's a fact. Doesn't mean to say that he's a sadomasochist murdering pig just because he tries to mount every female he can get his hands on, or did rather. Let's put it into perspective. So I don't have a problem with that. You know what I'm saying? But it is a bit iffy. The whole shenanigans is totally iffy. I believe he's been moving right against the whole script and the media in it of itself, and specifically Fox. And so I can understand why the powers would come to a collective and to try and pull him down. So I don't know. Jury's out for me because I don't know enough about him properly. But if he's been pushing stuff about which they obviously wouldn't want being pushed about, then maybe he has seen the light. Or maybe this is just another method, as we discussed through the week, that they've had to replace a lot of the old school shills because they just weren't up to scratch. Because a lot of middle class people now, or the more genteel class, let's say, have started opening their eyes to this kind of stuff. And the likes of Alex Jones and others won't do for that kind of character. But Russell Brand, again, he was sort of big in the younger generations, getting them on side. That may be why they're a bit worried about him, because if he's influencing the younger generations, they really are going to kick off for that, because that's the prize, isn't it? That they've moulded all these younger generations, especially those that took up the education from '97 when Blair and the Spin Brigade got in. Alistair Campbell, Gordon Brown, Peter Mandelson, Lord Levy, and ultimately up to Jacob Rothschild. They completely and utterly changed education and moved it into this basically privatised or private run education system. You know, I mean, I did some videos many years ago where I pretty much captured what I class as an evil headmistress that we had when one of my youngest lads were at school. I didn't like her at all. I didn't like what she was trying to do. She was deliberately trying to everything she could to get him labelled, etc., etc. So I did battle, and in all intents and purposes, after I'd sort of followed the drill that they did, where they basically tested the parents to see the reaction if they were told they couldn't pick the child up at the end of the school day. That was 2009. That drill I went through, I pursued it. I found it was just a complete and utter load of shite. That didn't go down well with the head. The deputy head, who'd been there for years, resigned because he actually lied. And when I asked, demanded he put that in writing, he resigned instead. But she carried on, loving every minute of it. I got bored from the school, blah, 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 what you'd expect. Anyway, to cut short, at the end of it, maybe a year or so on, I actually captured her in a parents' evening event that I attended, and I recorded the whole bloody shebang. Obviously, the video quality back then was terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. But if you just listen to what's being said, basically, the head mistress outed herself as basically they're not teaching any kids anything of any value. They're just teaching them garbage. Straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, for me, the great part of that was to see her face when she actually started to realise what were going on, what I were up to, or at least the thought entered her head and she just went white. Unfortunately, that's not video because it was an audio recording. But that was the prize for me, to watch every bit of life force just drain from her. while teacher outside of it had no clue and carried on babbling again, such as cementing what it were I were trying to get across, that basically they're not teaching them nothing, just garbage, just wrecking them basically. So it were interesting for that. So that's what we're going on from 97, a complete change in the education system. It became a programming system. You know, the lessons were set up so that they could collect data on you at home, recycle how many cans are recycling in the morning. What we're morning like what were it like at home this morning with daddy shouting at mummy, with mummy screaming, blah 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 blah. You know, that's how they collect the data in the primary schools, because these youngsters are just happy to go along with it. So they've turned it into a lesson, and it's a data collect, Ofcom, and measuring, and if you're good at it, you'll get an outstanding. So you really do want to be worried if Ofcom gives you, Ofsted rather, my apologies. If Ofcom, Ofsted, done it again, it's because I've been looking at these 5G stuff. That's what I've got. It's the other one in my head. So, yeah, they basically judged on the capacity to collect data on the family through the flea bag. Ta-da! So you should be worried shitless if your school that your flea bags are at is outstanding. Yeah, it knows every single detail about everything that goes on in your family. So you'll be warned, as it were. So now I've lost my train of thought completely, because I can't even remember what I was talking about. Shit. Well, that's no good, is it? I forgot. So I'll tell you what, while I forgot, in case I might remember, or you might remind me, I'll look at what you guys are saying. What a complete lunatic. But then it wouldn't be normal, would it, if it went perfect, any road. So Mew says, pirates are... Oh, yeah, you banged on with that one. It is piracy. It's damn disgraceful. Debbie, back. Oh, hello, Debbie. Evening, Mew. Thought I'd pop by. Anthony says, Sean, as always, my good man. Hope all is well. Sup, troops. Tonight's cover picture screams, I go Navis. To me, like glitch in the Matrix, at the beginning there, I see. Mew says, yes, Debbie in the house. Welcome home. Made me think about Pirate Chain. Okay, Pirate Chain. Anthony says, hey up, been a while. June says, good evening all, and the thumbs up, good evening June. Lex says, evening Shawnu. Good evening to you, Alex. Anthony says, rephrase, hey up, Mew. Hey up. There's no H, it's hey up. Hey up! That's what it is. We've got some clappy handies and love arts all over. We've got quite a few love arts going down here tonight. That's interesting. Love it. Hope you well, brother. Public notice says, looking handsome, Sean. Oh, well, thank you. I haven't done anything. I haven't had any makeup on today. I've put no lipstick on. I was thinking of getting some false eyelashes for glasses to see if I could enhance my eyeballs like. But then, no, I don't think they're available, to be honest, for your glasses. So we threw that out window. But thank you very kindly for those kind words. So Untitled says, hello, good man, Sean, and everyone. Good evening to you. Anthony says, a little passage as what I would describe as the dark night of the soul, but coming through the other end, brother. Yeah, well, I think everybody's going through that, you see. You can poo-poo what Claudio talks in relation to the astrology, but it's pans out, if you ask me. You know, it's worth keeping an eye on what how Claudio's talking about when it comes to his astrology, for sure. Debbie says he's worth 20 million but begging for cash. What have I missed? Who is? Who's begging for cash? Well, the trust's worth billions. It's not millions, and you're all multi-billionaires if you'd only know it. We could all pay off the national debt in an instant. We could pay off our council's debts, we could pay off the county council's debts, we could pay off the government debts. Boom, out the hands of the flute. Those, what they call fruit cakes, up there on Carrot Cake Mountain. LLL says, Sean, it's all going live with Simulation Event 201 requiring participation by consent. It'll test the resolve, but there is always something bigger looking over the shoulders of who looks at you. So what you're saying, that they're kicking it off again, are they, on the old television? Because I don't watch it, so I don't know. Is that what he's suggesting? They're at it? Are they at it? Debbie says, I disagree, Sean. I give him no benefit. Who? I don't know who we're talking about here. Oh, are you talking about Gary Moore? Right, well, like I said, I know he's got lawyers, but this is going back a couple of years when he were on the YouTube. I did watch his stuff because you learn something. I looked at some of his paperwork for some of his actions, and I couldn't. I thought he had a lot to learn on there, but then I think there were lawyers behind him putting that together. So it did make me think, are they taking him for a ride, this lad? So I don't know. So if that's who you're talking about, Debbie, because I don't know, why suddenly now all go to Channel 4, etc.? Oh, right, so that's it. Got you. Now I've got you. You give him no benefit. Why suddenly now all go to Channel 4, etc.? Well, because it's time to pull him down, is it? If he has pulled his conscience through and realised, because, if everybody out there is at least human. You can be hardcore this and then set off to do a shill, but, as you start accumulating data and you start to see in the game, not necessarily the game, they might already know the game because, of course, they're happy to shill, but once they start to realise what it is that they're going to do, you've got to be an hard-faced, unclean bastard to carry on. That's all I can say. Seriously unclean to keep going. So I don't know. I'll give you the benefit of doubt for that. But again, I would suggest they could also be sending him out, they call it an emotional cannon. Because again, they want to push him forward as this super shill or a superhero like with Tate. Tate did the same. That was just a blag completely. A total and utter blag. He's in Romania. Does anybody else in the world know whether he's in prison or not? Or just pictures. Yeah. Same with what's him called? Assange. Does anybody know that he spent time in actually a prison cell apart from people that go visit him who were obviously in the game anyway? It's all there to put fear into you to say, well, I'm not going to do what he did. Whereas a warrior will go, oh right, well I'll do it better. I'll do that, but I'll do it better. That's the real. So yeah, they could be putting him onto the emotional rack for a sacrifice so that he comes back with 20 billion followers. Because you've got Tate, haven't you? And he's a complete Tate. You only have to listen to him. You know what I mean? He's just so besmirching the masculine by making it. He's coming from the right attitude, but then what he's clever with NLP is putting sort of things that are a bit dicey on the masculine and then going to the extreme with it to make it look stupid. That, for me, is his gig. So it's an NLP gig with Tate to confuse the women or get them ready for domination. If the white honkies go off to war. With all these immigrants, you're going to be left with them. So it could be that to program the females to that idea that dominance is what they're actually really looking for, which is quite natural for a lot of females. But also it's programming the males to act like complete twats and treat females like complete twats. They're already there anyway. If you've been ticking up this chimp music, this Eminem King of the Chimps, of course, the rap, these gangster rap bollocks. So it could even be that. There's definitely something going on. So they are either taking him down or it's just another Andrew, whatever he's called, that Tate fella. Get everybody on side, emotional, blah, 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 and then shove him back out again. So the jury's out, so you could be correct. If I'm right and that's what you're talking about. It's a distraction. Of course it is. I mean, look at what's actually going on in the background. The G20, we've only told you, have all decided to crack on with this digital currency. So now they've all decided, they've got the agreement, and the fruitcakes on Carrot Cake Mountain are deciding in October, which is pretty much going to be decided. If they could shift the LIBOR system over to the new one, as we discussed earlier in the year, if they managed to achieve that, which we knew they were doing it this year, but they didn't say when. So if they've got agreement, which they have from the G7, and then they manage to succeed where they failed before in shifting everything over to this new digital system, then they're not going to say no, are they? They're going to go for it. So, but as we said, there's been a rise in the use of cash. That's got to be a good thing. That's shot up. Where are we? Likewise, I may seem you in regards to union, blah blah blah. Lex says brand could be a distraction for the Privacy Laws Act. Yeah, that's quite worrying. Also, what is it? 6 months in prison and ridiculous amounts of fineage if a company to do with the internet allows somebody to put something that goes against the narrative we know they're going to try again. The wind and change, which we know that's just ongoing. But then we've got another one coming up shortly, which is the UFO alien crack, which is basically, you know, just because I've not looked at all that stuff for a long time. Although there's one particular guy that I have. If he comes up on anything, I'll watch what he's saying, and it's quite interesting. I think he's called Summit Gear. I think he's an interesting fella. I've always kept an open mind, but then I've had an experience myself many moons ago, so I can't deny it as garbage. But so when I looked into that, which were a lot way back in the mist of time, because I needed to come to terms and understand it as best I could. But I found the earliest speaking of using an outside threat to pull the world together under the dominance of these fruitcakes from 1917, and it was a speech being carried out by the foundations. So it wasn't necessarily nothing to do with government. This were all of the foundations, Rockefeller, all these cheeses that were in there, and that's where I found the earliest mention of using that to pull together the world because you've got an outside threat. Then, of course, you're reading all the books, the ancient stuff. You've got all these kind of people because you're getting a feel of what's going on. But then you find somebody like William Cooper, and the first thing he did was a 2-hour interview, lecture in a white suit. Don't know whether it's still there. And he was the only guy that actually made me go, "Ooh, I better rethink this." And in 2 weeks, I had a bit of a problem trying to work it out. Then I found his later stuff, which was from the later 90s, where he'd seen that he was being used. So that made me think again, okay, so there is an agenda with these aliens, for sure. What it is, I don't know. You get a lot of suggestions in the old school stuff that a lot of these abductions were actually military operations, and they were using people who were a bit backward or people that had mental capacity problems. Drugging them, picking them up in helicopters or whatever, or even the craft that they actually have, and then having them believe that they've been abducted and messed with, then they were doing the cows and all these surgical removal and stuff. So there were a lot of data there to suggest, but the most interesting stuff I found and came across was the fact that through this idea of the aliens, so you'd had Roswell, the Third Reich had one in the 30s, the first one. So 47, you got Roswell. Now by the 50s, obviously this secret group at the background that were operating this agenda, they'd gathered momentum. Now, if I remember rightly, Henry Kissinger was in the thick of this secret layer of intelligence, military intelligence called MJ12, and I think there was something above that, if I remember rightly. But it was a really powerful group, and what they managed to do in the 50s was terrify the American government. That's not the federal system. The American government itself, to basically hand over power to this secret group, this secret government, using the extraterrestrial threat. So I found all that as well, and that's where I sort of left that. I could see that were a pattern that we could see playing out, and why so many people during the 50s and the 60s, etc., were just being pulled into this secret military web that nobody really knew much about, but you can source it back to the Third Reich because you've got Jack Parsons, you've got the guy who set up the Scientologists, Hubbard. They used to work together. They were following Crowley's rituals. It looks like Hubbard was successful, where perhaps Parsons failed. So that's another side to it. Again, that shows you with NASA how these paperclip scientists actually came into America and then continued the blag that had been set up in the Third Reich. So I've studied all that in the past as well. Now, listening to this Greer guy, what I find interesting is that what he's saying is that there are extraterrestrials out there, and I have to say I have had an experience in that scenario, so I know that is the case. But we're not going to go into that because that's still private and personal to me. But I know that they exist. Let's put it that way. Obviously, I weren't sure were it an extraterrestrial. That's what he said, or are they jinn pretending? So I left it a bit open like that. So I know that they're out there, and I did see the craft first, probably about 100 foot above me. So there you go, and that's what, 15 years ago, say? I don't know. But anyway, so I've always kept that in mind as well, that I can't refute it absolute. So what this Greer guy's saying is that what the game has been is that the elites know that they exist, and they also know that these extraterrestrials actually have a plan, which is they want humanity to come to terms with that idea in their own way, so that they don't shite themselves, yeah, and it all goes tits up. Now that takes a lot of time, and these fruitcakes, military intelligence bunch that is setting all this up, they can see that as a window of opportunity, and it's that window of opportunity that they're playing with, and that they then are trying to terrify the entire Earth of the idea of aliens by classing them as a de facto outside threat, and that is their biggest game in pulling together the world because of an outside threat. So their job has been consistently to put these aliens up as bad and evil. That's not to say there aren't some out there that aren't that way out, and perhaps they're the ones that are operating with this secret group. If that's the case, then this evil branch are actually trying to scupper what's going to be a natural revelation sometime in the future by having us all, they've created our attitude towards that disclosure kind of thing. Now that makes sense to me, because they were talking about it in 1917 as the main way that they can pull the world together, because it's fear. You know, we've just gone through the first round of that. We can see just what degree the world is running on fear. You know, big cars, fancy pants, all the shit that you think you've got. I'm clever, I'm intelligent, I'm this, that, the other, I'm religious, spiritual, blah, blah, blah. You know, the universe has just shown you, you're not, complete, you're fake. It's all been, everything that everybody's holding in our regard is fake. And the universe has just showed you that. But more importantly, for people on this path, we've been given a sign to say you're on the right game. Everything you know intuitively, there you go. There's your evidence. So it's a wake-up call for them that are still stuck. For us that are on the journey, it's there you go, boys. Keep going. You're on the right track. Have faith, kind of thing. So that's how I'm seeing that scenario. And you can see that it's around the corner. Now, so then if you look at the wind and change game, what that's about is setting up the system, the new system that's going to govern everybody. Yeah, you use the CO2. So that's the social side of the system they want to put in after the reset. So you can see how the separate but part are the same. You know what I'm saying? They want to get rid of the intelligent on the Earth, so they're trying to pull the world to really annihilate each other in that sense, aren't they? Because they believe themselves the supreme intelligence of the world and everybody else is beneath them. So you can see that playing out. You know, the biblical, we've gone through that, haven't we? You've got Luciferians, you've got Satanism, you've got biblical. But if you look at that properly, Luciferianism and Satanism are actually part of the biblical tradition, are they not? Because it all comes out of the Lucifers, Satan's in there, it's all coming out of that tradition. So what we're actually seeing with all that is a deconstruction of the control grid that they'd set up in the last age, the age of Pisces. And they are deconstructing that and reconstructing it, or constructing this new one. And that's what all this nonsense is basically about. And obviously, the less of us there are, the easier it is for them to do this, because they've got millions and millions of fruitcakes in security, in military, in intelligence, and two biddy bodies, baby boomers especially, little, curtain tweakers. That's what they've got with them as their army. They've got all the evangelicals, so your Zionists, they've got all them bagged up. You've got Islam bagged in it. You've got the Jews bagged in it. It's all there playing out, but it's just a deconstruction of the control grid from the last age as they set up this new one. So I weren't going to talk about that tonight, but we have, so we're all right for time. We're only 33 minutes. So I hope that makes sense. So Brand, yeah, these privacy laws are quite worrying, to say the least. So you want to keep that in mind. But the thing is, and I've said this before, leaflets are the greatest way of passing information on to the public. So if it gets to a point where you can't do anything on social media, then stop doing it, and then you're not going to get wrecked. But you can always do it out in the public, and everybody gets, because that's how we used to do it back in the day, before the internet really took off. That's exactly how we all used to do this stuff. They're better than protests. You know what I mean? They've got a lot of people protest now. Fair play to you. I have nothing against it, but it's not for me. It's not the way I do my game. I did it back in the We Are Change. It's pointless. You just surround me, and it's just ridiculous, really. So it's pointless me doing protests, and I don't for that reason. Anthony says, "Thumb it up." Go on, thumb it up, troops. Why not? It does do well, actually, I think. Although I've seen none of the subscribers that we've gained all last week and a few this week. All this week and last week, it's gone down one. How does that work? How does that work, chaps? It doesn't, does it? So there's some of the do you know who the grantor is of the public trust? So it's the Crown, isn't it, of the public side? Through government. You've got to see everything as an agency of the Crown, if you know what I'm saying. But you are the principle upon which all these trusts are created. It's your flesh and blood, when you're IDing, that gets put, all of a sudden it goes in, it's the res in the trust. The minute you ID yourself, you're a trustee. But we're not going to get into that, because I'll tell you now, I've learned so much. And what I'm doing now is all the data I've compiled, I'm pulling it together so I can break it down from God knows how many hundreds of pages of data to say 20 pages of data. But in doing this exercise, it's helped fix this shift that's essential that everybody has to do if you're going to seriously start to move in the manner in which will checkmate the system. Not because your map wills it, wants it, cross about it, and you that just not going to work. If you haven't realised that by now, you might give up and try another avenue to secure your future. But in doing this accumulation, going through the subject matter, etymologically looking at words, then paralleling it with the legal terms, their grasp on what the word means, has been the greatest thing I've done for myself in relation to this law game. Yeah, it's done me a favour, and which is why I say to you, you really need to consider starting again. So at the moment I'm pulling together all this verbiage and breaking it down, and then I'll do it again, and then I'll do it again, so that hopefully I may have 5 or even 6 pages with the bullet point I need to evoke the knowledge that I've studied about that. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's been a really worthy exercise, but I'm only just starting to pull it together now. But we will get into that at some point, but it's not something I'll do on the internet because the wrong people will be getting it. But I'm looking to work out how I can teach it in the private. Because that would benefit me, because I would have to start to earn some coin by doing it. Otherwise, I won't be able to do it because it's going to take a lot of my time. So that's how I'm seeing it, folks. That and the data I've gathered, I'm sort of building the grammar as I go on paper. So it'd be quite quick in order to put it together to teach it. So that's where I'm looking at the moment as to do it, but I'm not going to be doing it online. Sounds bad, Mew. Have you tried on? Oh, hang on. Mew says, still going through it, mate. Last night I passed another storm throwing up for 4 hours, and then slept for 16, feeling good today. So living in the now, but I'm smiling. You alright, lad? Yeah, you're alright, mate. But if you're just passing storms, that's probably not too bad. Now, if you want to break them storms down very rapid, you want apple juice. You want pressed apple juice, so Tesco sell it, so it's fresh, it's not from concentrate. You cannot drink enough and it breaks it down and you'll piss them out like sand. Now if it's serious, there is another method, but it's a 6-week gig and it involves the same apple juice but olive oil or one of the oils. It might be cod liver oil, I can't remember. But it's quite a nasty process, but that's if it's serious and that breaks them down quick time. But apple juice is amazing for breaking stones down, mate, so I don't know. Well, you seemed alright the other day when I said the any route, so I hope you're alright, matey. Let's have a look. Oh, shot up there. Fair play, bro. Wishing a speedy discovery. As painful as they are, the positive is the cleanse. Yeah, it will work. Pirate Chain is a privacy crypto coin. Hope all of you are good and healthy, says Public Notice. And the same to you, me old China. Andrea of the House Fallon. Good evening, all. Good evening to you, Andrea. Brandy's worth 20 million. Well, I sold 16. But I don't begrudge people earning money. Just like I don't begrudge people that are in an elite position. Because the world to work needs everybody at their own station. And you can't go from a working class hero up to the top of the outy tights because you don't have the grammar. You've not been taught. Which is why it used to get me with Labour. You've got, really run-of-the-mill guys wanting to run a country that don't know their ass from their elbow. Only, or it would say it was in the day, trade union rules. I could never see them running anything. They were thick. So that's why I could never actually see myself as Labour. I was always with the Conservative outlook. This bunch that we've got now and we've had since Thatcher, they're not Conservatives. Conservatism were destroyed by Thatcher. Well, you could say Edward Heath as well, but he was more destroying the nation, which then besmirched the Tories. But Thatcher was the real destroyer of Blighty. She incorporated the state. That's what you've got to remember. Your memory is worse than mine, so my memory is proper crap. And I've realised that a lot of my chronology. So I thought I'd done my finger in 2004. I found some paperwork the other day. I did it in 2002. So my chronological memory is absolutely shot to shit. So yeah, it just is anyway. We will have to agree to disagree about him. So you like him? Because I'm not saying I like him. I'm not saying I dislike him because I don't know anything about him, apart from obviously what I've been reading in this last few weeks. So I'm not taking a position really on it, but just pointing out that it could be either or. Either we're pulling him down because he's been talking wrong, or like Tate, they're pushing him pulling him out on an emotional channel to get an even bigger audience to his side. Disciple of the Messiah says, peace and grace with the Sean family. Peace to you, sir. So I've been following. He has and not been deplatformed. He's on the payroll and justifies online arm bill. He justifies it. Ooh, brand. Right, well, I don't know anything about that. Louise says, can you please tell me who the grantor is of the public trust? Well, we've just looked at that, haven't we? And it's grantor, not to. Andrew says, agreed debit. Cos says, Audit. And we've got the Spock hand and the alien. And Public Notice says, crackhead. Who's a crackhead? Oh, Brand. Is he? Well, he's a bit odd, isn't he? Come on. But the comedians are odd, haven't you? You've got to be odd. You're looking at the whole world as a caricature of laughter. But he's an extreme guy. I'm not my cup of tea. Most of the people on telly today are not my cup of tea. They're just demented. L. Ron Hubbard, yeah, that's the man, says God. Did you have this alien experience during your rave days, Sean? No. Well and truly over. So, of course, says, a moon and the stars and the rocket and the satellite. So, we're looking at that Neuralink the other day. Because apparently it's been given a license by some crackpots. So, the monkeys that we used in the tests for this Neuralink, and I'm going through some of the... So, apparently the SEC have been sent a letter by the people involved in those tests in the Neuralink system, because they're horrified that it's actually been given some kind of leg up. And I started to read the narrative about what happened to each monkey. Oh man, evil beyond belief. Just read. I think I could only read 4. I had enough. So every one of them had to be euthanized. The monkeys that they tested this on, because they were an absolute disaster, and the pain that these animals are in were just not worth thinking about. So, it's not a good gig, that. It's not a good gig. Anthony says, Sean, some on more than a few occasions, the UA app got a picture of something quite strange taken from off my phone. Do you think they are known as the Min-Mins or Tic Tacs? See them quite regularly. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on up there, isn't there? You know, I'll see satellites or whatever they are passing on the same line. But I've read, you know, it's 2 sides to the satellite. A, they can't stay up for long. B, most of them are balloons. But some of the things I've seen whizzing past, they seem to be going quite fast. So they could actually, you remember they took away the Concorde, because the Concorde were there so that hoity-toity could whiz around between America and here in 3 hours. There was nothing wrong with that aeroplane. It were almost a perfected machine. They didn't set it on fire for no reason. They wanted it out the mix for you and me, because they have a better system. They now have an even faster system or method by which they can travel. So I've wondered if they are that. There's also talk that they've got shuttles underground at some, is it Mach 3 that these things travel at. So take your pick. But they got rid of Concorde for a reason, and that reason had to be that they didn't need it anymore. It can be no other reason. That's how selfish they are, these people. Just tuned in and almost dropped me coffee. Did I hear you right? You an experience with a UFO and alien? Alien. Yeah, I chatted with him, he gave me his name and everything. He said he wanted to help me. Yeah. The thing is, it wasn't a surprise, because so when I came out of the mystery school, obviously I were in connection with a shaman at the time, and to my surprise, I was told then that he was there and he'd come because he wanted to let me know that he wanted to help me. And I'm thinking, but I don't believe in aliens, and I didn't, because of everything I'd studied previously. So I weren't taking it on, and I didn't take it on at all. And then maybe a few years after, in the company of the same shaman, before I left, the same, he's here again, and he wants to help you. And I'm like, yeah, alright then. And I just really weren't taking it on. And then one day, in the afternoon, so actually no, first, there were one evening, I'd come out my house, and I don't think there was anything on with weather that I can remember. But I just remember looking up, and there was this big round thing, and all these different lights whizzing round, like it was definitely circular, the disc. And I'm like, what the fucking hell is that? And then just like, yeah, but it was like in a cloud. It was strange. You couldn't see it shining, right? You only knew the shape of it because of these lights that seemed to be going around it like that. But I'd had an experience years before in Blackpool, which were voiced to mind. But I put that down to the military base at what's it called? I can't remember its name. Wharton, War Settlement, or Wharton, which is just to the south of Lytham St Anne's. And I, at that time, just saw that as everybody's being pulled into Blackpool to get a taste of this voice, especially because all druggies are there. So these druggies are running around thinking they're talking to aliens, when, my opinion back then, now that were in the 90s, so I was still in the mystery school, and I'd gone to meet a guy called David Boyle, who, because I were on the radio back then, at Rock FM, for about 3 years, on a Sunday night, with a guy called Roy Basner, who works in Liverpool radio today. And during one of his things, this guy David come on, and anyway, we had a chat, and he invited me to go meet him, so I did. But he was obsessed with Star Trek and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? But he said he reckoned he channeled Anu. And to be honest, we went through his gallery. He had like a museum with all his stuff and a lot of stuff he was saying. But I knew it had come out of Sitchin. I knew it were all Sitchin's garbage. So, but on my way out from there, when I'd made it pretty clear I weren't interested, that's when I got that voice to skull thing, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, it is real. And that's way back in. No, it weren't in the 90s, sorry. See, my chronology's cocked up. It weren't in the 90s, that. That was probably about 2006. So my apologies again. Yeah, my chronology's gone. So that was my first, and I'm like, yeah, still not buying it. But anyway, so I'd seen this graph this one evening. And then just went in and thinking, what the fucking hell have I just seen? And that was it. Now, I don't know what the time lapse was between, but it must have been a few years. It wasn't any time soon. And then it was one afternoon, clear as a day, sunny day, afternoon. And I've been doing some work on my computer, and every now and again I'd stop, have a fag, turn round, and just, level myself a little bit. And the doorway into my living room was on my left. And I'm just sat there, just like that, just chilling. And this big thing come flying in my house. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Now, the best I can explain it, because this is exactly what it was, in the Predator movie, where it's got its camouflage on, that's exactly what it was. And it was big. Right? It had to bend its head down in the ceiling. So you couldn't see, I'm not going to say to you it were a lizard, it were an Aryan or any, because I couldn't see what it was, apart from this cloak. So I could see and feel this cloaking device. You could feel it as well, actually. And it were probably, because I had quite a large living room, so it was probably about 15 foot in front of me. But I could still feel this massive power coming off him. So we had a conversation, I asked him his name, he told me his name, and then as quick as he came, he disappeared. And I've never had any other experience since. So I think when I asked once the universe, and this basically said something like, he's not allowed to play out with you anymore. So I don't know, maybe I were a bit naughty, but at some point he weren't allowed to play with me, so I don't know. But as far as I'm aware, I've never felt it since or anything like that. I've never seen anything that I afforded to that, apart from maybe one thing I had in 220, where I was watching this thing go across the sky, and then all of a sudden it flared up like it had a massive engine. It was white light, and I wondered what that were. But again, I don't fuss about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's not something that gets me excited. But I do accept that they are there. But for me, it seemed to be more of an interdimensional thing. It was weird, but I could feel whatever that cloaking device was. I could feel it. So it must have been electromagnetic. It had to be. But it wasn't an uncomfortable feeling or anything like that. You know what I mean? I'm just not very shockable, me, anyway. Do you know what I'm saying? I've experienced so much in my life. There's very much that shocks me. So, you know, it didn't knock me off my perch, it didn't make me worried or want him to come back or start worshipping and praying to him. That was the end of it, and I never give it another thought. And then since then, there's been no other experience in that realm. So, but I do accept that they are real, whatever they are, they're real. Which is why I find this Greer guy interesting, because I can understand what he's saying in relation to why they're turning the alien gig into you must fear them. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's basically that's my experience with all that. Public Snow says, I watched Dr. Michael Sala, Exopolitics, has some knowledge. Never heard of him. Hugo Bosswood says, Eric Dubé debunks aliens. Well, you couldn't debunk what I've just told you to me if you tried, because that was an experience that I had to the point I'm happy to share it with you. It was real. It wasn't a joke, it wasn't a game, it wasn't a dream, I wasn't asleep. I was wide awake and it was a sunny afternoon. And my flea bags were at school. Yeah, I were on my own by then. So you couldn't debunk that if you tried. You could put the entire military together with a ray gun. It wouldn't debunk that, because that is a fact and that happened. So, but it doesn't matter to me what you believe. I couldn't give a shit. You know, I don't care what anybody else thinks of me. It doesn't matter to me. I do my thing and that's it. So, I'm not telling you to believe it or nothing and make a big fuss about it. There is no big fuss to be had. That's what happened. And that's it. Paul Sefton says, evening all, good evening Paul. Forscully says, greeting dear ones, good evening to you. A lot of strange footage as well. What did you say before? I don't know what you're referring to there, Chuck. You have a lot of strange footage. Of what? Public Note says, if not correct, then it's wrong. Exactly. Forscully, I wish I could visit and learn direct, Sean, but I'm way far from UK. Alright, where are you, Chuck? And Forscully says, I was arrested and removed from the land without the copper having an actual arrest warrant. Oh, well, you can give us a bit of insight to that if you like. Hugo Bosswood said apple cider vinegar. Now, I don't know about that because I've not tried it, but yeah, I've seen that is said to work, but I know that apple juice works. Especially if you mix it with, I think it is olive oil, because I wouldn't have anything else. Lots of criminal acts. Are you talking about brand? Mupit says, 1 litre times 6 days of apple juice. I'm on it, Sean. Well done, my friend, because that will do it. Just go back to that cool peppers on my website. I'll put it up under here after, because we need to go back to that this autumn. Because I stopped doing it, and I've just not gone back to it. But for this autumn, we'll go back to that, because... But if you go on to... I'll put the link under. On there, I've started to put it together in a sort of data easy. So you can just go to kidneys, there it tells you what's good for it. Liver, boom. As far as I've got in the book, so yeah. Good man. Castor oil, perhaps, Sean. It could have been, but I think it were olive oil, you know. Castor oil is great. Yeah, it is actually good for you, yeah. Debbie says, I don't begrudge money, but he doesn't need to be begging for donations. Is he begging for donations? Right, well then it's a setup. He wouldn't be doing that if it were real, would he? See, I don't know about that, so I don't watch him. So you're saying he's out there begging. See, Rumble haven't demonetised him. I put the letter on Facebook that they'd sent, government had sent to him, like. But so they haven't done anything to him. I believe it's only YouTube, isn't it, that's demonetised him. So Debbie's on about brand. Okay, yeah, got you. Paul says, lost 1 million a year from YouTube, Debbie. Lost 1 million a year. Is that what he were picking up? There is no news, says Sean, have you done your family tree? How far can you go back? Well, I did do some mooching about in it, but it's the trouble is you can get trapped by that. See, when I was at mystery school, a lot of what's going on in there and a big pull to get you to come and join the game is by getting you obsessed with the bloodlines, right? So ancestors and all them are all controlled by these freaks. Yeah, you remember they're just knocking you off being an enemy. They don't care about you, but as long as in the time frame they've got allotted, as long as you don't become an enemy, they've done the job, and then you'll be squashed. So I did start doing it. Now there's quite a lot power kind of stuff going on when you look into some of my ancestors, and then if you go on my grandmother's side, they're into Irish kings. So I got to a point where I thought I don't want to pursue this anymore because it's going to obfuscate I don't want it in my mind. So I stopped because I weren't interested. For the simple reason is it doesn't matter how many ancestors have come before me. I'm not any of them. I'm not anything that they did while they were down here because I'm me. And I'm fantastic and fucking amazing. So I don't give a shit who came before me. As far as I'm concerned, who I am is just embedded in this avatar, which is a confluence of all these bloodlines, to make the best of it, to do what I can with everything that I can do with this body. But more importantly, pulling my mind back into order, getting that breath as pure as you can, so that what I'm presenting and shoving out there isn't gobbledygook. No, he's a wrong one. He was the bloody child snatcher at 212 Olympics. Hugo Boss says apple juice full of sugar, hence apple cider vinegar. I'm not too scared of sugar. I know somebody who lives on sugar. And honestly, never at doctors, absolutely stunning. No, it doesn't work. You've got to be careful what you know what's what by your own. If you're going to eat a lot of sugar, what does it feel like? Jot it down. Then go and stop sugar and eat a lot of salt. What do you feel like? Jot it down. Then you know how your biology is dealing with all these substances. You can't blank say blah blah blah. Yeah, I know sugar. It's not a good conductor of electricity. So if you're going to eat a lot of sugar, you've not got electricity going down in your body. Good salts, do the opposite. They enhance conductivity. So I'm aware of that. But it's a balance, isn't it, as well, you know? I go with what works for me and what doesn't, you know? So I was eating a lot of cakes in the last couple of years, and I noticed I just had that little bit more. And I stopped for a long while, and it just disappears. That's all you need to do is stop. And your body comes right back to normal. I don't hold bulk anymore, I've noticed. That's obviously we're getting older, but that's a strange one to get used to. You know what I mean? Brands woke up a lot, shilling out, he's doing a good job. Well, again, of course, all these shills, and I'll say this, it depends on your capacity as to whether you should watch them or not. Because if you're going to watch them, you're going to learn a lot, because they're going to pull all the subjects in as the 80% truth in order they can sell you the bullshit or obfuscate or divert you. It's always worth looking at these people. Alex Jones used to come out with dynamite information, and if you checked it out, it would bang on. It's what he didn't do, what he didn't say, what he wouldn't attack, that shows him to be shilling. I'll go into any subject matter and look at it and then present my findings if I think it's worth it. I don't have an edit. Well, all right, let's fit. Obviously, I don't have an edit. We all do, to what degree. We're pulling down that edit, but yeah, of course I'm going to still have an edit to some degree. But I've learned not to let it interfere in what I write, which is what I used to do when I first started doing this. It took me a long time to learn the art. I mean, I won't say I'd collected the art yet, but so rhesus negative are very well known for not being able to read a lot of the words that are in the English language. We just struggle with certain letters. It's weird. That took a lot of training to do, to stop myself writing with bad spelling. And that were early days, but that took some doing. So if it's your capacity to see through these shows that's important, not whether you should hate these people or never watch them because they're shills. You watch them because they'll cover topics that you probably didn't know about, and they might enhance the path that you're looking on. But again, if you're thick, don't touch them because you'll just believe everything they say. You've got to be watchful and watch what they're not talking about. And then also listen out for other people who are saying this, they don't. Because then you can start to see where they're shilling. And pretty soon, you can watch these people and do nothing but gain. Because you're not in any way, shape or form picking up the edit. So, yeah, if he's woke a lot of people up, that's good. But we don't know what the next part of the agenda is, do we? Because if they're going to launch this UFO stuff, that's pretty much going to take all the attention off the book scripts, isn't it? And if they've already done the damage that they wanted to do with that initial script, people are going to be in awe of it. In the same way, before it, they were in awe of the television and all the personalities on it. You know? It really is about waking up, all this. These 4 horses, it's 4 events to wake you up. But if you're already awake, it's 4 events to cement that you're on the right path. Because you're not falling foul of it. When you look at it like that, you can stop shiting yourself. Yeah? You can just stop shitting. Because there's no need to shit yourself, is there? You know? So what the White Horse did was show fake for fake. And you couldn't get around it. There were no blagging it. Yeah? Unless you were up there in it. Because you're fake, but you've got the money and the contacts to know what it is. But for us that have had to find it out ourselves, it's kudos to you, and it's a tick for you. You know what I mean? It's a bonus point because you can see you were right. You were right because you felt the same fear that everybody else was fearing. You couldn't help it if you were watching the telly, but you didn't succumb to it because you're spiritually more evolved. You're not faking your life. You got stuck in. You're in there. And you've got a good conscience, you've got a good standing in morality. Doesn't mean you're perfect. You don't have to be perfect. But you get my drift. So if Brand's woke a lot up, good on him. So I'm watching it because he might not be shilling, but if he's still asking for money, that's not good. But then that's the businessmen, aren't they? That's what they do. You know, he's been a star for a while, he's going to know business. Not all of them do, that's why they get robbed. But the younger generations are a bit more business savvy. Which is sensible, isn't it? Fortunately says, been using methylene blue. It's lovely. Okay, I don't know what that is. Methylene blue helps cognitive... Oh, that's what you were talking about before, isn't it? Yep. Okay. Commonly known as MK Ultra. Yeah. Well, it's Project Bluebeam, innit, this alien gig. But they have a new name for it as well now, another one. I forgot. Holy Spoke says, viewing the night sky with night vision is eye-opening. Seen plenty of silvery orbs while working outdoors over the years. Yeah. I have recorded footage of a cube. Interesting. Hugo Boss says, I'm with you on the legal side of life. In regards to aliens, the Bible mentions a firmament. Just wonder your thoughts on it. Years ago, sailors navigated with the stars. Now it's GPS, etc. Well, I've looked at all that. I mean, I've looked at all the firmament stuff as well. But I don't understand fully how people have come to see the firmament as a solid barrier. I don't get that. Why they see that? Look, the way the waters are held apart is through the magnetic field that's being created with the earth. You remember, think about magnets. It's a massive power when they're repelling. It's a massive pull when they're pulling. The magnetic field around the earth would be enough to keep the waters out. The same in keeping them from coming up, would be my opinion. And Ken Wheeler put a great video up where he froze, I can't remember what, I'm not going to even say it because I'll probably besmirch it. And if I can seek it out, I'll put it under this video, where he gives you an idea of what it could actually be going on. But magnetism would be, it's not a solid bang barrier, is it? So when they're trying to say that these rockets are bouncing up thingies, well, I'm not so sure that that's what's happening. It could be, and I'm not denouncing it either. But these are not the things that I sort of focus to. For me, the reason why we haven't been outside into space and to the moon and all these places is because of the Van Allen belts. And that's it, game over. You can't get through them. You can't get life through them. So I know they're blagging it, which if they're trying to create this, what they know is going to be this great disclosure down the line, they're seeing that as a window to make you hate these people before they disclose. That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Perfect sense. I mean, some of the Anuna stuff sort of suggests that kind of scenario, that this idea of things coming back, even Christ even, and all this stuff, it borders on that kind of gig, doesn't it? Let's be honest. But like I said, I'm not obsessed with that kind of stuff. It doesn't really... It's just entertainment for most people. I want to get stuck on things I can do things with. But it couldn't be debunked by anybody. All the King's Horses and all the King's Men could not debunk my experience. End of story. It's just the way it is. But I'm not suggesting for a second I care whether anybody believes it or not. It doesn't matter to me. Because it's not part of what I'm trying to do. But that's personal to me. That's how I see these kind of things. That's for me. There, you know, whether I should... I've never actually really shared it before, only on personal with certain people, but I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not worried about it, but that happened. It's a fact. It's like humans have become less intelligent. Absolutely. Well, look what we've just seen. All the fake in the world doesn't hide from people who are seeing the level of everybody out there that danced like frightened little animals to that gig. You can't take that away from you, can you? You didn't do the gig and that's how you're seeing it. Luckily, a lot of people, it made them wake up as well. Well, we've got 3 more of these gigs coming on. Yeah? You know, if it takes you by shock and surprise, you can only go into fear. You know what I mean? And that's where they get you. So then you're going to take on the mantra that they throw out at you, whatever the event is, or as it happens. They did that with 9/11, they kept shoving this garbage story down your neck. You know, they do it, this is how they do it. They thrust the garbage down your neck. You got it every day through the book script. The bombshell, Chalker, Westminster and all their associates. You got them every day laying it down for you while you were in a state of fear. But when you don't, when you're aware of these subject matter, when they happen, you're still shocked because you're like, fuck, they're going to do it. But you're not succumbing to the fear because you're not in fear. You're going, you bastards. You're getting cross at it. It's a different side to what's going on completely. And that, what does the Bible say? Those with eyes to see. You know, if you're in a house divided, i.e. your left and your right brain are not working together, you're bedded in one side or t'other, you're fucked. You're in a house divided. You're not going to be able to grasp this. It's all there. It's all there. But the problem is, because we're all beginning this journey, because they've hidden all this knowledge, so we've been finding it, putting it out, exposing, we're still on that. You've got to keep faith with it rather than. So what happened to 3 years ago? Take that as your guiding point. You're on the right track. Keep going. And then it's becoming a program that people can learn from, because people that are coming after everybody are coming to the knowledge a bit more enhanced, a bit more in tune with sanity, rather than taking you off onto all these ridiculous fantasies, when it's basically just that there are other entities that live in our space and they don't really want you to know about it unless they choose to do so. Glad to see someone with knowledge of Mr. MB and many benefits. Who's MB? Talking about the evil arrest by the corrupt deputy sheriff. Where are you? What country are you in? Anthony says, great analogy there, Sean, in regards to the 4 horses. No need to shout yourself. I coined the phrase, it is what it is. And I'm observing and trying to discern whether I'm still on the path, etc. Exactly. What more can you do? And if you can't see it in those terms, you're just going to keep shiting yourself every time they do something stupid. Simon League says, 37, Hi Sean, I've been subscribed to your channel for a couple of years now. I normally watch the next day. There's a plant called the Chanca Pietra. I said that right. It means the stormbreaker. This is supposed to work. Thanks for that, Simon. So there you go, Mute. Have a check on that. Chanca Petra. Or Petra or something. Thanks for that, Simon. And thanks for subscribing. It's supposed to clear them in a couple of weeks. You can get it off the internet. Good stuff. There you go, Mew. Hugo Bosswood, yes, totally agree, unless we see it with our own eyes. Yeah. So for me, I couldn't deny it if I wanted to. It doesn't mean I'm all excited by it and I'm chasing it. I need to see it again. I'm your last. No, it doesn't matter. He came, he told me crying, he buggered off. That's it. So what's that mean? It just let me know that they are there. I have a bit of faith. But also, it helps me to look at this game that's going on with these fruitcakes. Probably as it is, as opposed to the fantasy that they're procuring. Mew pick, yeah, so there you go. There's no source. There's these number 37 again, Sean, I spoke of. Publino says, Mew, most diseases source is the mitochondria, the energy cell that works from what we eat. MB supplies electric and oxygen to the mitochondria so it functions correctly. Well, fasting is a great way to start messing with that stuff, and stem cells, and the immune systems. Yeah? Fasting is the way you manipulate your immune system. Publino says, people don't see MB boost cognition and energy. MB? What's that? I started my username when I was 37. I'm 49 now. My email has it in. Public notice. Claudio is saying that it's stress and forgiveness. He has done my birth chart and he can see these cleanses as they are happening as I'm relaying the time. Well, you seem fine to me, matey. The other day, you seemed in fine fettle. So you must be doing something right, me old China. Hugo says, yes, I'm also living life in no fear, just debunking the written spells of laws to raise one's game in this life. And Solvermist, hello Solvermist. We get the pink handshake, we like that. Hugo Bosswood, aliens may be demons and angels. Makes sense, doesn't it? Let's be honest. Yeah, makes perfect sense if you... But yeah, for me, it's real. I've done it, seen it, experienced it, and didn't get too excited by it neither. I were in shock when it come in, because it was like, oh, the hell are you? So it were a shock, it wasn't, you know, fucking hell. It were a shock, I can't really explain that, but I could feel that, and I just see it as a cloaking thing, you know, and I don't need to have it explained to me in great detail so I can go, yeah, it's real. That was fucking real, mate. I mean, I've done the 90s. I've took every hallucinogen you can imagine, except DMT and one of the two exotics from South America. I mean, I know what psychic is. I know what it is, and I know how to use it. And that was nothing to do with psychic. That were real, physical, tangible. You know, if I'd have gone up to touch him, I'd have probably got a shock. But, yeah, interesting. Right, we haven't done nothing, and it's 1:15. We've done an hour and 15 minutes. So, first and foremost, let's... I want to bang you on to Graham. Just have a listen to what he has to say.
For the country, talking about the English Constitution, people often say to me, it doesn't exist. They say, we haven't got a constitution. I'll be honest with you. If you're British and you say to me, I've got a British constitution, I'd say you haven't. If you're British and you say we haven't got a constitution, I'd say you're correct, right? The English Bill of Rights came from the Glorious Revolution. There's something you should all understand. How many people, put your hands up, if you've heard of the European Convention of Human Rights. How many of you know that many of them rights contained in the UN declarations and the European Convention of Human Rights come from the Magna Carta? That's how much rights you've got. Let me tell you something about the English Bill of Rights. It came from a convention parliament. We've got our own convention. It's called the English Convention Parliament, and they were the rights. Guess what? Under equity law, there's a clause that says if there is a set limit on a period, and once that period is closed, the beneficiaries are you. The rights within it are yours forever, and then you have a group of trustees. The trustees were the Crown, Parliament, and the judiciary. They are currently failing us. Don't listen to the people that say we want another system. We have the greatest system in the world. We need to take it back. When we take it back, Richard said something. He said, why don't we have all these different systems? You mean like the old English system? You mean like the counties and the shires? We were a confederacy of shires. Well, if you didn't like what they did in Essex, you moved to Kent. And all of those taxes were unique to them areas. The people paid into their own communities. And let me tell you something. We had militias that protected our nation. The Essex militia repelled Napoleon. Napoleon landed in Essex. The riflemen went round back to their cottages and picked up their rifles and shot at them. They got back in their rowing boats, went back to their ships, and they left. That's the English. We would stand and fight. This is our land. And it doesn't belong to the British. It belongs to you.
Now then. So, this is the convention he's speaking of. Now, as I said, I haven't actually gone through it at all. So I thought we'd do it. We'd do it fresh. So, can you see that okay? So it says Convention of Parliament, 1689. The English Convention was an assembly of the Parliament of England which met between 22nd of January and the 12th of February, 1689. 1688 old style. So its legislation was labelled with that earlier year and transferred the crowns of England and Ireland from James II to William III and Mary II. A parallel Scottish convention met in March 1689 and confirmed that the throne of Scotland was also to be awarded to William and Mary. The assemblies of 1688. Immediately following the Glorious Revolution, with King James II of England in flight and Prince William III of Orange near in London, the Earl of Rochester summoned the Lords Temporal and Lords Spiritual to assemble, and they were joined by the Privy Councillors on the 12th of December 1688 to form a provisional government for England. James II returned to London on the 16th of December. By the 17th, he was effectively a prisoner of William, who arrived in London the next day. Subsequently, William allowed James to flee in safety to avoid the ignominy of doing his uncle and father-in-law any immediate harm. William refused the crown as de facto king and instead called another assembly of peers on the 21st of December 1688. On the 23rd of December, James fled to France. On the 26th of December, the peers were joined by the surviving members of Charles II's Oxford Parliament, and that's from the previous reign, ignoring the MPs who were just elected to James' loyal Parliament of 1685. The Earl of Nottingham proposed a conditional restoration of King James II, an idea supported by Archbishop Sancroft, but the proposal was rejected, and instead the Assembly asked William to summon a convention. Right, just checking something there. Convention of 1689. Convention Parliament was elected in January and first met on the 22nd of January 1689. The Parliament spent much time arguing over whether James II was considered to have abdicated or abandoned the throne in some manner, and who then should take the crown. The Whigs referred to theories of social contract and argued that William alone should now be king. A few radical Whigs argued for a republic, but most Whigs argued for a limited monarchy. So this is the Scottish Presbyterians, okay, the Whigs. Yeah, the Venetians. They came from Belgium originally. The Tories and took over Scotland under David I. The Tories favoured the retention of James II. Now, the Tories back in the day were the original English aristocracy. Now, they were called Tories because in Ireland the original term was short for Catholic bandits. And of course, the biggest majority of people on these isles were still Catholic. But of course, a lot of them went to the protest and became Protestants. But still, holding what you would class as Catholic as a morality, as it were. So it was pretty much a battle between the existing barony, called the Tories, and the Whigs, who were impostors that had come from Belgium as aristocrats under David I and pretty much took over the entire landmass of Scotland. The Tories favoured the retention of James II, a regency, or William's wife, Mary, alone as queen, because of course Mary was English. Archbishop Sancroft and loyalist bishops preferred that James II be conditionally restored. Now remember, this is bishops of the Church of England. So the Tories wanted James II or Mary, and that was also backed by the bishops of the Church of England. So they could both together see that they didn't want these Whigs in because they represented something else. What did they represent? Well, everything that Cromwell represented, which means everything the moneylenders represented back over there in Holland. Yeah, so at this time, 1689, the majority of people in this nation still wanted it to be as it was. So they're the Tories and the bishops of the Church of England. And the opposing force are the Presbyterian Scottish Whigs, who were actually Belgian aristocrats. On 29th of January, it was resolved that England was a Protestant kingdom, and only a Protestant could be king, thus disinheriting a Catholic claimant. James was a Roman Catholic. By the beginning of February, the Commons agreed on the descriptor abdicated, and that the throne was vacant, but the Lords rejected abdicated, as the term was unknown in common law, and indicated that even if the throne was vacant, it should automatically pass to the next in line, which implied it was to be Mary. However, on the 6th of February, the Lords capitulated, primarily since it became apparent that neither Mary nor Anne would agree to rule in the place of William. As a compromise, the Lords proposed that William III and Mary II should both take the throne, which the Commons agreed if William alone held regal power. Now, Mary and Anne, okay, they're Protestants, and Anne, her downfall was basically the fact that the Spencer Churchills had the claws into us through Sarah Churchill. So you can already see that in Anne, they'd put a lot of effort. So it makes you see a bigger play. When I've studied this stuff in the past, you can see that there's a much greater play going on than what they present to us. But anyway, the Parliament drew up a declaration of right to address abuses of government under James II and to secure the religion and liberties of Protestants, which was finalised on the 12th of February. So maybe I might have to double check that all the bishops then were actually Church of England. But I'm pretty sure they must have had to have been, because we're quite a fair way on from my apologies, from Henry VIII, aren't we? Anyway. On the 13th of February, William and Mary were proclaimed King and Queen of England, Scotland and Ireland. the acceptance of the crown was conditional not upon acceptance of the Declaration of Right, but on the assumption that they rule according to law. On the 23rd of February 1689, King William III reconvened the convention into a regular parliament by dissolving it and summoning a new parliament almost a year later. The actions of the Convention of Parliament were regularised in early 1690 by the Crown and Parliament Recognition Act of 1689. Now, I've been coming across this Recognition Act in some of the data I've collected in relation to dealing with equity and common law and ecclesiastical. The first act passed by the regularly elected second Parliament of William and Mary following a new election. So the Recognition Act of 1689 was the first act that actually was put through under William and Mary. Effect on 13 colonies. The Convention Parliament of 1689 would be imitated in the 13 colonies, and the use of such conventions as an instrument of transition became more acceptable and more often used by the colonies, resulting most notably in the 1787 Constitutional Convention, which drew up the United States Constitution. Right? So we can see again, can't we? The Civil War in America, the Yanks versus the Americans, was the Holy See pretty much doing what they'd done here in Civil War, which were putting the Venetian side, the Holy Roman Empire, into the mix. You can say that that's exactly what went on in America when they finally achieved power on the British Isles or England. Then they did the same in America. Interesting, isn't it? And maybe Lincoln realised that it weren't actually a British game he were fighting, but a Protestant game. They probably didn't realise. I don't know. Let's not even get into that. So that's basically what Wikipedia has to say about this Convention Parliament 1689. So I'd suggest that if there's anybody out there who likes to do this stuff, let's start getting into this and see if what Graham says in relation to the trustees being the Crown Parliament Judiciary, which is exactly what it should be, let's see if we can find the data. Now, of course, we know that's exactly how it is. So, we know we're under Admiralty. Now, a couple of years ago, I went through the occupation. Do you remember? Through the videos. And recently, what I've come to learn is that the block that we're all finding that's stopping us from accessing what is naturally ours by right is the occupation force. And that goes against the rules of occupation. So these bastards, we have to start looking at them now as they are. These bastards are a military force now getting ready to put the jackboot on the English, the Scottish and the Welsh and the Northern Irish. We can no longer see them as, oh, it might be alright. These are bastards, and these bastards have got one thing in aiming, and that's to get rid of everybody on this island. We need to start to see that is the blockage. They're breaking their own rules of occupation. We need to understand this fully, and then we start to push that. Yeah? Your Lord Lieutenants are in charge of the magistrates. There's where you hit if you're getting dragged into magistrates and they're acting like tossers. Right? So it's important, I think, that we now cement this, that it's important that we pull this to bits and understand its value, what's been repealed and what hasn't, what's in force, so that we know what's being broken by this occupation force, which is the United Nations. So that's the effect. It's notable acts of Parliament, the Bill of Rights, the Toleration Act and the Mines Royal Act. Again, 3 more acts. See also 1689 English general election, list of MPs elected to the English Parliament in 1689. That might be interesting. Cornwall Halifax Ministry, revolutionary breach of legal continuity. Now, Cornwall is important because all the fucking soldiers that were being pulled out of these islands for the First World War were sent from there after they'd been paraded past Stonehenge as a sacrifice. Revolutionary breach of legal continuity and Convention Parliament, England. Sources: Eris Tim, Revolution, the Great Crisis of the British Monarchy. Alan Lane. Then you've got Eris, all these different references, citations. And there we have it. Now, if we just have a flick, you'd expect there'd be a lot in there. They're cleaning Wikipedia up. There's nothing on the talk. And there you go, folks. I think it's exceptionally important that we pay attention to this now in relation to what it is we're all seeking to pull together. Now, also, I just want to quickly... I've been going through my website because when I updated it a couple of months ago, right up to date, which I've been avoiding for quite a long time, it has a lot of new things, and basically I can go through every report now, and I have to set a featured image which gives me this fancy image at the top of the actual report. So I've been going through them, and as I've gone really far back to the beginning of the site, I forgot what stuff I've put in there. You know, there's some really good stuff in. This is an excellent read. In profile, the Committee 300's Roundtable Network chat mouse. Now, I bet if I read this myself, I'm going to have to update it. I know I am. But what I came across, that I forgot that I'd actually written, is just this data on how important the House of Palavicini has been on these islands. Now, just to quickly recap, the House Palavicini operate for the House Farnese. The Farnese are by far the most important Holy Roman family that's got power and claws on the British Isles, and it's been so for a very long time, probably since 1066. Now, they've done some fancy pants stuff. Through John O'Gone, they've brought in these darker people that weren't ginger. That's been one point. We know, we've explored the fact that the Stanleys have operated for the House Palavicini in its entirety. They're the people that put the Tudors on the throne. And that they are also the family that were behind Elizabeth's tenure, specifically in building up a navy. Piracy on the Spanish galleons coming out of the Americas, of course. They were pirating them, you know, to rally these people. That's what they were doing for the Queen. So we've gone through that. Now it says here, these are in the notes that I've put for this particular thing, but I thought these were interesting. It says, the House of Palavicini are from the Genoese. They sponsored the rise of Napoleon, Bonaparte, the British Empire, the Venetian Party, and the House of Habsburg. The Habsburgs being the old Venetian Party. Now, haven't I said to you many times that they call themselves the new Venetian Party of the North today? So the old Venetian Party was the Habsburg Empire in and of itself, controlled in the background by the House of Palavicini and others. Let's not pretend. Now, the House of Palavicini actually operate for the Farnese. Okay, so the Rothschilds don't even come close to this kind of power. Horatio Palavicini funded William Cecil, 1st Baron of Burleigh, from 1520 to 1598. So there you've got an important Palavicini guy with Henry 7th and 8th. Chief advisor and close friend of Elizabeth the first 40 years, dominated foreign and domestic policy in England, often overriding the Queen herself. That's the power of William Cecil for the House Palavicini. He created the English Secret Service with Walsingham. Manipulative, engaged in many plots, I should say, with Walsingham against other courtiers and foreign nations. Uncle to Sir Francis Bacon, and Cecil's closest friend and financial backer was the Venetian Horatio Palavicini. Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, major player in the Levant Company and its predecessors. See, the Levant Company was before all the East Indias, yeah? And they're all modelled on it, so that's the most important one, the Levant Company, which of course is what we know today as Israel. Soon to be Israel, as they seem to, the new plan is to absolutely get rid of the Palestinian idea altogether. And also Robert Dudley was an intimate of Queen Elizabeth I, remember? Okay, and people have even said that James I was actually a daughter from Dudley and Queen Elizabeth I. There's interesting data on that. So he wasn't even a fellow, which is why he liked his voyage. Sir Francis Walsingham, 1532 to 1590, spymaster for Elizabeth I, studied at Padua for 4 to 5 years and worked on behalf of Cecil, close associate with Thomas Smythe, and operated his intelligence service on the same basis as and in league with Venice. Sir Thomas Smythe, first governor of the East India Company, associate of Sir Francis Walsingham. James Harrington, 1611-1677, wrote Oceana, arguing for England to become the new Venice. Okay, now the Presbyterian Whigs are direct from the Holy See. So all the Catholics here originally still thinking they're operating under the Holy See. Can you see how they play this? The Holy See as families is how they played this. So see the Whigs, see Cromwell, see Venetian, see money lending, see the House Palavicini of the Holy See. Paolo Sarpi, 1552-1623, a leading member of the Ridotto Morosini, a one-time ambassador to the Vatican, corresponded with Francis Bacon. His protege, Fulgencio Micanzio, was a mentor to Thomas Hobbes, case officer for Galileo, and considered to be the first empiricist. Sarpi's Art de Ben Pensar was the basis for the works of John Locke. Yeah, Supremo Protestants, all being controlled by the Holy See. Francis Bacon, 1561-1626, nephew of William Cecil, revered Aristotle. Well, Aristotle, when I've studied the philosophers back in the day, was a complete twat. An absolute twat, and the reason we're in this mess we are today, going right back to Alexander the Great. What a shame he didn't represent the data that comes through the avatar Plato. Socrates, which we get through Plato. Because Plato is probably, Socrates is more than likely an amalgam of even older data up to that time of Plato. But I don't know. Between 1577 and 1580, he toured Europe, spending time in Italy, particularly Venice. He was a personal friend of Paolo Sarpi. His publishing agent in Venice was Micanzio, intelligence asset of Cecil and Walsingham, Lord Chancellor in 1618, leading member of the England Rosicrucians, okay, which is the esotericism behind Freemasonry. Thomas Hobbes, 1588-1679, took his grand tour in 1610, disciple of Massanzio, the protege of Paolo Sarpi. Associate of Francis Bacon, published Leviathan in 1651. Now, Paolo Sarpi is an exceptionally important figure in these times. And I mean exceptionally. If you just look him up, you'll be quite surprised what you find. 1688, Anthony Ashley Cooper, 1st Earl of Shaftesbury, 1621-1683. Patron of John Locke, one of the 8 Lord Proprietors of North Carolina, who introduced slavery to America. Okay, slavery, Palavicini, Holy See. You seeing this? Leader of the Venetian party until his death in 1683. So he obviously tied through that, I suppose. Plotted to overthrow Charles II. Right. Charles Montague, Earl of Fairfax, top operative of the Venetian party, King William's Lord Treasurer, oversaw the founding of the Bank of England in 1694, organised England's first national debt on behalf of the Venetian party, reaching 20 million by 1696, at 30% interest, folks. Chancellor of the Exchequer, appointed Newton to head the English Mint and oversaw the Great Recoinage of 1696. In 1697 he became Prime Minister, succeeding Lord Sidney Godolphin. From 1661 to 1715, who became Lord Treasurer under King William. Another crony, Robert Spencer, Lord of Sunderland, was named Lord Chamberlain in 1697, later acting as Secretary of State from 1708 to 1710. In 1707, Montagu was appointed Ambassador to Venice. At the same time, we got the Act of Union, so he's operating under Anne. John Churchill, Duke of Marlborough. Now we're starting to look at these, aren't we? These Blenheim Palace crew. Captain General of English forces in the War of Spanish Succession, ally of the Venetian party, key control along with his wife Sarah of Queen Anne. So they were controlling Queen Anne. Yep. Protestant they might have claimed. Did they know who they were actually operating for? I doubt it. Or you're a queen, for God's sake. You'd know. Mary and William did, and tried for ages to get Queen Anne to get rid of Sarah. Anne, remember, lost 19 kids. That doesn't happen, does it? Come on. Enemy of Leibniz, Swift, Harley, and the pro-American development faction. Proponent of permanent war doctrine in the War of the Spanish Succession. Yeah, so that's the Churchills. War, mass murder, mass murder, mass murder. And if you watch the Peaky Blinders, you get an insight into how he and the Oddfellows, which have a big fraternity up here in the old north, were running and kicking off the underworld, criminal gangsterism. The Doria family, Spanish Habsburgs. Giustiniana, Venice, Genoa. The British East India Company, a commercial company 1600 to 1873, chartered by Queen Elizabeth I and given a monopoly of trade between England and the Far East. In the 18th century, the company became, in effect, the ruler of a large part of India. Remember, the company ruled it, not the English, not the Scottish, not the Welsh. Yeah, the Venetians. And a form of dual control by the company and a committee responsible to Parliament in London was introduced by Pitt's India Act in 1784, but by then they controlled the government in its entirety. So we have been pushed into a front position, a scapegoat position through the Imperial days. Yeah, what started off as trade, gave us the 13 colonies in America, was took over by the Venetians and turned into a colonial slaver bastard operation. The end of the monopoly of China trade came in 1834, and after the Indian Mutiny in 1857 to 58, the Crown took complete control of the government of British India. Remember, the monarchy crown got took away in 1649. We're talking here about the private, unincorporated society that is the inner city of London, the Temple Crown. Yeah? They run China. They run India, Iran, Pakistan they created. Yeah, that's who we're talking. It's not English. It's not the Scottish. It's not the Americans. It's these bunch of bastards. Venetians operating for the Holy See. The East India Company set up factories, trading posts in Masulipatam in the east coast of India in 1611. On the west coast in Surat in 1612. On the east coast in Madras, now Chennai, and in 1639. Attempts to set up a factory on the Hooghly, one of the mouths of the Ganges, began in 1640, but were unsuccessful until 1690. And again, when it first set up, the East India wasn't colonising, it was trading. Yeah, and setting up factories in them areas so it didn't have to move goods around on the oceans and manufacture them all here. So it was sharing with the Indians, or the Indian elite, of course, what were being set up originally. It weren't until the Hanoverians got it stuck going and the Bank of England were on there and the government in debt to it that it became this horrendous monster. The settlement later developed into the city of Calcutta, now Kolkata. By 1652, there were some 23 English factories in India, Bombay and Mumbai. Came to the British Crown in 1662 and was granted to the East India Company for £10 a year in 1668. The British victory in the Battle of Plassey in 1757 gave the company control of Bengal, and there you get your opium. Yeah, so you're into 1700s, Hanoverian time, Venetians completely running it on behalf of the Holy See, when it became everything it became that wouldn't be enjoyed in India and, of course, in China. So I hope the Chinese people, you may listen to that. That's what's really going on, because they've got control of your nation now, and they're about to use your nation, or are using your nation, in exactly the same way they used the British Isles. Same gig, same they're doing with Pakistanis. You're contracted to the Empire, not England, not the English Parliament, not the English Crown. You are the British Empire. All the immigrants are. So that's not what you're fighting, you guys, if that's what you think you're fighting. And it's important that people start to see it in these terms before we all play the game that they want us to play and set off bringing about Armageddon. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that made sense to you. And let's go and have a see at what you guys are talking. What's MB, by the way? You've still got me a bit perplexed by that. Right. Great analogy there. Oh, we've done that one. Hi, Sean. I've been subscribed. Yep, done that one. Totally agree, unless we see with our own eyes. Yep. Okay, good. I've done that too. Yep, aliens, maybe demons and angels. I think that's what we got to, isn't it? America, Washington. Yeah, well, he's from Lancashire, isn't he? He's from. I have a piece up actually on site. I'll put it up, obviously, now that we've mentioned it. Yeah, it's the place is still kept. You know, you can go and visit it, where his family were. I agree, Hugo. Aliens, maybe demons and angels. Food turns to glucose, supplying energy. Fasting kicks in ketosis due to the lack of glucose. I have blood glucose and ketone meter. Interesting. Anita says hi. Hello, Anita. All one evening, all good evening to you. Public note says we need to write a constitution by men. No, we have it, is what we're saying. It's already there. See, we do battle in England through what our ancestors set up before we have no other choice than go to war in the physical. Yeah, that's what they're bringing all these Johnny-come-latelys over for, folks. It's not a game, it's real. It's not happening yet, but don't believe it's a fantasy just because it's not happening right now. We know it's happening right now because we're watching it happen. You're just waiting for kick-off. Well, if you're not seeing enough on your streets by now, you know, where are you? Solomon says, hello, Sister Anita. Been a while since I listened to Daddy Dragon. Yeah, I didn't even know he was still going, in truth. Have you seen Greg Allett's recent video on the Vobes channel saying Magna Carta was a fraud? I haven't, no. Only you can help yourself, not only me, but we have another here, also takes methylene blue. Ah, MB, got you. For it benefits as more wake up to it, our memory goes blank, MB is secure. Forscully says, you land, are you, what? Land belongs to us, not any bloody pirates. Nothing belongs to anybody, it's dominion, that's the best you can go for. The minute you start saying, I own, blah, blah. Now, if you invent something and make something creatively, it's yours. But there's nothing down here like land that you can own. You know what I mean? You've got to get that in your mind. This is why I keep saying you have to remap the map. Hugo says, Parliament sounds like parlay. Yeah, is it? It's guiding the mind, isn't it? Meant. Parlay. Yeah, that's what it was set up for, provisions of Oxford. And then, as it got bigger, each shire would have a representative in Parliament. You'd vote, you know, for your magistrates to represent in your councils. You know, you get into, it's an interesting history, but you can also see that they set it up to undermine in the secret side. Because they're the secret sides who are putting their people in to them positions, you see. And that's why they do that. It's like Russian dolls. You know, you open one layer, there's someone else in there, there's another maggot. You open that one, there's another maggot in there wiggling his little winkle about. That's how it works. And they have to keep it a secret because they're all little wiggly maggots. Parlay speak meant mind. Yeah. Well, parlay, it's more guide. I can't remember. Makes sense, parlay, as the pirate speak, so maritime. Apologies, I'm slow with this, but trying. Yeah, it is a bit pirate speak. Public note says, Paul, you know language. Paul says, I find it interesting, public notes, just a student though. Thanks, Sean. Don't spend enough time on your website. Well, it's always going to be there for you to have a look at. There's some good stuff on there. Treen says, hi Sean, I'm late. Oh, it don't matter, Treen, it's not a problem. Anthony says, YouTube pop-up, Sean asking, do I find the efficiency of the info on your channel? Replied extremely, naturally, first time encountering that. Subject matter you are covering is hitting a nerve. Good, but I don't know what's happening with YouTube. It's a shame, really. I wish they'd just let it free. Let's see. You know, I'm not passing around on all the stuff I know they're going to get in trouble for. I'm not so sure YouTube have got control of it. I think it's 77 Brigade, personally. Or some version of the maggots up there in Secret Land. I mean, if they can't see, if these guys are intelligent men, and they can't see that what I'm doing is fucking exactly what they're supposed to be doing, then they're maggots, aren't they? You know, they're maggots without winkles. If you can't see what I'm trying to do here, especially if you're a smart ass like these guys are supposed to be, then you're unclean. It's as simple as fucking that. I can't put it any further, any better. Hope you got a note, Treen. Well, if you get a note, just tell them I'm fantastic and amazing. My pronouns, innit? They're not allowed to argue with them, are they? The feudal system never went away. Nope. Anthony says, Sean, would you say the land is our mind, body, soul in relation air, land, sea? No, it's in Genesis 1 it separates things out, doesn't it? But so I can't remember how far back. So it used to be man, mind. That's its original. Then sometime in a few centuries ago, you find in etymology where it's saying money, man equals land. So sometime way back in the day, they shifted it off mind and then converted it to sort of translate as land. Man and land are the same word. So, because I thought it was land for a long, long time. It wasn't until I went further back and found that actually it was mind, which makes even more sense. Let's have a look. Definitions of parlay and parliament is similar also. Treen says, hi Paul, I have to go back and watch from the beginning, got loads to catch up on and process my map. Well, just stop shagging them aggies and wearing kilts and that starts a good start. I was watching some at Stonehenge as they were doing Equinox and then out come the Aggies bag. I couldn't believe it. I had to stop listening. I couldn't do it. I can't do it. It's bad music, man. Hugo says, I appreciate your information and research. Good, I'm glad you do, and I hope you do. But I hope more than anything, he encourages you to see that there is another reality that's more real than this fantasy they're pushing all over the shop. And, you know, it lessens the fear. When you start to understand things, there's less fear evoked, isn't it, you know? It's when we don't understand things, yet we sense that things are not right. That's where you can always be pulled into fear and then totally manipulated. Because they're setting it up again, the second dose, they'll be ready for it. And in that time of fear, when it hits, whatever it is, they'll capitalise on that. They'll throw out the mantra, they'll be throwing these UN boys on the streets, these police will upgrade the game. You know, I can see it happening. You'll be in shock if you're not ready for this next horse. Because remember, for you who's waking up, it's for you. It's you, it's your pointer saying keep going, you're on the right track. You didn't get catch by it. But don't ever think and get complacent. You know, keep moving, keep learning, keep going with your intuition. Treen says, Aggies have disappeared off the grid, I think. Really? It's them Belgian aristocrats. They're not really into Aggie shagging. They're more into flea bags, aren't they, kids? That's what their game is. That's why it's changing their Treen. So you're not seeing many Aggies running around, are you not, these days? Maybe I'll have to come up and have a look and see if I can hunt a couple down. Have a bit of a chat with them, like. Tell them they want to start running up these skirts of these Johnny-come-latelys and biting the winkle off. Now that'll stop them breeding anymore, won't it? There'll be no more foreign Aggie squeezers in the next couple of generations. Maybe that's what I need to do. I'll have a word with a couple of Aggies. See if I can get the spirit of the Aggies on side. Tip, how to make money, breed freshwater shrimps. And Tree says, did you see the ad for a movie called The Creator? No, I haven't seen that. Is it out now or is it coming? And Public Knowledge says, Paul, it's called Parsing. And Tree says, you're welcome, you know that. Good egg. Well, chaps, that's another 2-hour blag I've given you. Unless you've got any questions, we can call that a wrap and you can get back to your night. And whatever it is you're going to get up to on a Saturday night in your bedroom antics, I don't know. Right, chaps, I'll say again, thanks for joining. Quite a chilled one tonight. We didn't get excited. Hang on. Sure, Logic says, you hear about the young ginger aristo who was shot to death in his hotel room after confronting Charles in public, claiming Charles was an imposter. He was shot to death. No, when was that? Is that recent? I didn't know. Thanks for a coffee. Thanks for coffee, Sean, on Friday. I'm going to say good night, but not all in the chat. Night, Mew, and keep drinking that stuff and keep pissing them stones. Till the next time for thee, lad. And Tree says, Pit on the 23rd in cinema. Okay. Right, I think that's about it. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining, chaps. Thank you for taking part. And I have only one thing I've got to say, and I won't cock it up this time and put beginning on. I will put the ending on. Thanks again, chaps. Have a good week, and till the next time.
electronic